All right. So, welcome to the archives. This is one of our other series that we'll be doing that we're going to take a book or a game system that we haven't played, haven't really examined, and kind of break it down for you guys. Now, eventually we will break into a game that we are familiar with, so we can break it down for you guys and discuss it. Like, I'm not so much familiar with the White Wolf games, but Donovan here has played White Wolf most of his life as a DM. So
well, White Wolf and Dungeons and Dragons are the two big ones.
Right.
Dabbled in a few other systems like Palladium. Palladium was fun.
And I've dabbled into quite a few systems as well, but I have a slew of tabletop books at my disposal that I've looked at, I've studied, and I've never ran half these systems, but we're going to take a look at them for you guys, and we're going to examine them. Like today, we're going to be doing Classroom Deathmatch. Now,
This looks like a more recent game, judging by the art on the cover.
It does look good. I mean, you have one woman, who I'm assuming is a teacher from the way she looks, holding a gun.
Are you sure that's a woman? That could be some, like, oh God, what's the term that they use? Bishamon? Or, for a really pretty guy. Bishonen.
Bishonen.
Could be a Bishonen dude going crazy. I mean, just look at the expression on the face.
Very well could be.
There's most likely a girl there on the bottom, though.
Yeah, they have one person holding a gun, one person holding a chainsaw, and one person holding a katana.
I'm sorry, katana versus chainsaw? Fuck you, katana.
Pretty much.
Fuck you. I mean, don't get me wrong, Japanese swords are cool, but a whole series of spinning carbide teeth, yeah, the katana's fucked.
Pretty much. All right, so you can actually find a copy of this apparently on atarashigames.com according to the the second page already? Third page. Mm-hmm. Third page of the context of the book.
Go back up. What's the copyright on there?
2007.
Yeah,
there
you go.
That's recent enough.
Yeah.
That's 15 years.
It's a millennial game.
It is a millennial game. You're right. So
I don't mean that in the sense that
no, but you're right.
But it's like it's a millennial game, so this is something born in the aftermath of 3.5 and White Wolf and some of the older systems being revised.
Pathfinder as well, I'm guessing too.
Yeah, Pathfinder. Well, actually, Pathfinder was like toward the end of technically 3.5 is still being produced technically. But, the people who built 3.5 built Pathfinder. And they continued in that vein. And then Wizards of the Coast decided to turn D&D into an MMO on tabletop. I'm still mixed on that one.
So, we have roughly about 10 chapters in this book. One of them is, essentially what is Classroom Deathmatch, the Student Reform Initiative, which I'm guessing is the character creation. I can only guess. Oh,
God. Okay, I think I know what inspired this.
What is it?
Fuck, what's the name of that fucking manga?
Assassination Classroom?
No. Grimmer.
Yeah, probably.
Fuck. No, I'm not saying that was the title. Assassination Classroom is dark, but what I'm thinking of that may have inspired this is darker still. I'm fucking trying to remember the name of it.
Playing Classroom Deathmatch, setting the scenes, running a game of Classroom Deathmatch, Battlegrounds, the weapons of Classroom Deathmatch, meet the students, panty explosion, and influences and recommendations.
It would be an anime-themed game without a little perversion.
Just a little bit. I mean, every person's gonna have some sort of reaction to it. So let's see. So just based off of what we're reading here, Classroom Deathmatch was the follow-up to Panty Explosion. So apparently it's a
standalone game.
It's a standalone game. So the Psychic Japanese Schoolgirl Adventure game. So it's a Psychic Japanese Schoolgirl Adventure game. I know several people that would probably cream their pants just from hearing that. That they could play as a Japanese schoolgirl, and I know literally like 3 people off the top of my head that would be like, oh, I get to wear a mini skirt? Yeah, sure. I mean,
we're looking at you, Vince. And we're judging.
I'm also judging Anthony, if he ever hears this. Anyway, so you could play Classroom Deathmatch as a standalone game using only the rules included in this book, or as a supplement to your regular Panty Explosion game.
I remember.
What is it?
Battle Royale.
Ooh, okay.
This gives me real battle royale vibes.
Let's see if that's where it took you. If you ever played Panic Explosion before, then you're already familiar with the psychic schoolgirls, terrifying demons, lecherous teachers, merciless bullies, and ruthless students that inhabit modern Tokyo and Japan's brutal educational system. All right, so it's very,
This is like
already
anime grimdark.
very. In Classroom Deathmatch, you and your friends take the roles of Japanese high school students. One of you will need to take the role of the superintendent who will control the game. So the DM in this is the superintendent. And your entire class of 50 students has been kidnapped by the Japanese government.
Battle royale. Telling you.
That sounds like it. And let's see. And will be forced to participate in the televised contest called Classroom Deathmatch. So the contest will be brutal and unforgiving, and unless you can figure out how to outsmart the government, you will be forced to do battle against your friends until only one of you is left alive. As a group, you'll tell the story of your students' 5-day ordeal in the Classroom Deathmatch. Most of you will die horrible and gruesome deaths at the hands of your closest friends, but if you are smart and lucky, you may find a way to outwit your captors and survive. Read the rules on the following pages to discover how to select the students and play. So already off the bat, your battle royale or even Hunger Games, if you're if you want to Americanize it.
Yeah, I guess so, but I feel like Hunger Games is like just a more adulted version of Battle Royale. The Japanese are like, they don't shy away from things that we do here in the West. So things that we would consider taboo and whatnot, they just kind of shrug their shoulders at it. Ironically, it seems like a lot of things that we have problems with that they don't, they have fewer problems in those departments. Is there a correlation? Who knows? But the game? Let's find out.
So it does say you need at least 4 more people to play at least a copy of this book, and if you wish to have a copy of Panic Explosion handy as a reference source for the information on the Japanese schoolgirl system and student culture, the game requires the use of 6, 8, 10, and 12-sided dice. So about most of the...
Pretty much all of them except for the 20 and the 4.
So 4/7 of the dice. There's 10. Wait. I'm gonna hurt myself in math. Anyway, so yeah, you use 4 out of the several dice that are included in a normal set of D&D dice. You can make do with just 1 or 2 of each, but it's best if you have a few for each player. Players can reference the student record sheets in the back of this book, and they may wish to copy the pages that contain the students they will play. So it sounds like you could either make your own, or you literally use the people from the universe.
Okay.
And it looks like Adarashi Games has additional resources on their page, which, you know what, let me pull that up, because I'm kind of curious. Let's see if they're still kind of trying to publish their shit.
Well, they might have other things they publish as well.
This looks really well done. This looks too professional. I thought this was going to be like...
It's in Japanese.
You know what? I can't say I'm surprised. Shit, I can't read a... You know what? Good on them. I can't read a lick of this, and I don't know if it's even the same website. You know what?
We should have had Vince here. Not only we could rib him, but he could probably read some of it.
You're actually probably right about that. Okay, so...
We love you, you fucking weeaboo. We love you.
So this is supposedly... So it was supposed to include different maps and cheat sheets and all that fun shit, but I guess if you're really clever enough, you could find a bunch of, like, actual...
You could actually probably go online and find a map of an atypical high school
in Japan.
And just run with that.
The Student Reform Initiative, Classroom Deathmatch. And this is pretty much talking about the economic slump of the 1990s in Japan. So
a little bit background history, flavor text, kind of setting the scene here. I've noticed that quite a few games nowadays do that. I don't remember it being a big thing before. Like in D&D, especially the older books, Advanced Dungeons and Dragons and First Edition, the OG shit, did not have any real sort of flavor text to kind of set the scene. It just gives you the rules and a general outline of the game. But I really started noticing it with White Wolf specifically, where in the beginning of the book and sometimes at the end of the book, they would have like a story, something that was very flavored and themed, that if you bothered to read it, which I know a lot of people didn't, it would really set the tone and the theme of the game you're getting ready to play.
I remember that with Scion. I remember if you look at the Demigod, Hero, and Godlike books, they have quite a few...
But again, White Wolf Publishing. Yeah. That was sort of their shtick, and it works. In some instances, they do it as a lot like a comic book / graphic novel format. It really depends on the book and the themes that they're going with. But I like that. I really do. Because don't get me wrong, I like being able to use my imagination. I know a lot of people do. I mean, if you play tabletop games and you don't like using your imagination, you're probably not having any fun at all. Unless, it's just the idea of virtual combat. And if you're one of those people, this is a bit of a side note for me, please stop playing. You ruin the game for everyone. If you don't want to participate, you just want to kill things, video games, just go home, fire up whatever your console of choice is, be it your PC, Xbox, whatever, and play that.
I actually agree with you. It's if you're not there for the role play aspect, I mean, that's fine, but at least interact with the and that's another thing that gets me heated is phones at the table when it's excessive phone use. And I get it that not everyone is, invested into the story at first, but do something to get invested. Like don't
you should probably do something to address that later on, like maybe something along the lines of, for example, let's say you and I are interacting and it's a shop thing and no one else wants to. Maybe have someone that's sort of like a co-game master, GM, DM, storyteller, superintendent, to sit down with the others and do something with them. Or better yet, maybe have some of your players play some of the NPCs when they're not in the scene to keep them actively involved. Again, that's a little bit of a side tangent. We could probably edit this out. But it's an idea.
No, but it's, these are all, thoughtful ideas. But getting back to this, so part 2 essentially gives a lot of exposition into background Japanese culture between the 1990s and the 2008s.
At least as far as this game is concerned.
All right, as far as it's explaining. So, there's a lot there. And then we have playing Classroom Deathmatch. So, let's see what we have as far as, actually playing one of these. So, let's see. Kill my friends, murder students. This all sounds pretty awful. Why would I want to play this game? Situation portrayed in this game is pretty awful. If you think Classroom Deathmatch is too violent or sadistic, then you may wish to try another game. So they're essentially like, well, if you don't want to go this hard, then just don't. Choosing students. Once a superintendent has been chosen, remaining players will take the roles of students, forced to participate in Classroom Deathmatch. You don't need to design a student. We've already provided 50 ready-to-play students in this book. So here's what they're saying. Out of the gate, this book contains everything you need to play. You don't need to create 50-plus students for the entire session. Mm-hmm. If this is a 5-day, quote-unquote, game, you can literally do 5 sessions, and you should be relatively done with the game.
Also, I'm noticing there toward the bottom of that page that of the 50 students, while you're playing, if you die, you can choose another student and continue playing. So death does not exclude you from the table. You simply assume the persona of another character that's still alive, and you keep going. Which
allows you to, if you are playing with the superintendent, and I'm going to say with 5 other students, you all potentially have about 10 students to play at one point or another.
At the beginning of the game, each person playing, if you're playing with the max number, has 10 personas available to them, and that number will be winnowed away as the game progresses.
So there's actually quite a bit there, and that's good. It doesn't you don't need to necessarily draw up the same character. So that's good. I like the fact that you don't need to make a character. You just pretty much choose whatever the heck you're poison is. But let's see, what else? Why choose a random student instead of creating one? One of the main themes of Classroom Deathmatch is being forced to play the hand you are dealt. From being abducted to participating in the contest to being given a random weapon to use. Students are forced to make the best of bad situations and do what they can with what they have. Players should do the same and look at their randomly selected student as a chance to try something new and different.
I like that idea. One of the biggest traps of tabletop role-playing games, especially for us older players, is we kind of get stuck in character ruts.
Yeah.
This doesn't matter what build we're using, we tend to give them, beginners and advanced players both suffer from this. We tend to kind of build one-dimensional characters. We get used to playing one specific persona. And this system basically is like, okay, you're playing the jock. Oh, you died? Now you're playing that bookish, mousy girl that is, spends most of her time in the library. Completely different skill sets, completely different personalities, completely different gameplay styles. This really gives you a chance to exercise and expand your repertoire as a player.
That it does. So let's see. So this is I don't want to call it a character sheet, but this is just information.
Oh, this is a reference.
Yeah, so the understanding of the student record. When you select a student to play, your student record sheet will already be partially filled out. Let's go over the student record and find out what each part means and what your student is capable of. So, file photo, that's self-explaining. Student name, also explaining. Date of birth, Junichi Shine. I'm pretty sure I butchered the fuck out of that. So your student's Junichi Shine sign is essentially the Chinese zodiac. So you get to pick a Chinese zodiac piece, and it has no impact on the game apparently. So you have your student's blood type, gender, homeroom teacher, and club memberships.
There might be some more stuff too on the next page.
Let's see.
Nope.
No, okay.
Oh, yeah, student number.
Student number, yeah. Oh yeah.
That's what the sheet looks like.
So that's pretty cool. It actually looks like a dossier folder or a dossier record. And I can get behind that character sheet. That's actually pretty dope. That's pretty cool. And it gives you a student. Oh yeah. So the student number,
best
both
friends and
male
rivals, traits, popularity. This seems like Big Brother, spent all night snorting a fucking, Scarface level of coke and just writing this shit up about each of the participants.
So student number, popularity, best friend and rival, traits, like you said. Is there anything else? Belongings, special techniques, so they encourage the whole anime tone about it. Elemental dice. So these are your students' elemental dice based on the 5 classic elements of Godai. So you'll use these dice to resolve conflicts. Using the elemental dice is a big part of the game, and we'll be talking about that later on. So they are heavily influenced by this. And then kills. The names of the students your student has killed when the Classroom Deathmatch starts. There will be no names listed here, but as the contest progresses, you'll use this space to write the names of the students you've murdered. So I like that. It's a body count sheet.
See, okay, we're going to have to do this at some point. Because, with our group, we need to do this game and then, maybe post it online, like the actual hard stats with the body count on there.
When we get a website up, which we're working on, I can't say when we'll get one up, but when we get one up, we will be posting character sheets and all that fun shit, so please keep a lookout for that, and I will be updating you guys as we go.
And we will definitely let you guys know when we try this game. It's going to be a blast. I
want to see who will animate an entire fucking session.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Let's not get ahead of ourselves, but to play this game and then have some rando animate the actions, episodically, I'm kind of at half-mast right now just thinking about it. Not going to lie. And if me saying that bugs you, well, fuck you. You shouldn't be listening to this anyway. We're
Ouch.
adults.
Yeah, this is as fun as this is for children. We are adults, and we make this friendly for everyone. And we don't want you to think that we're clean cut, because we're not, and that not by any chance. But like stuff like our Power Rangers tabletop, which we will be getting back to. One of our people have been in and out with COVID and sick. But we will be getting back into that with other things. But this is by no means. I mean, we'll be going into
really dark territory.
White Wolf and other dark tone tabletops, where I recommend that if you're not of age at least 15 or 16, do not bother listening to some of these. And even then, I recommend not even until 21. And we will be giving a warning when we do one of those.
Yes, we will. We're definitely going to make sure that you know what lines we're crossing in certain games.
Because I promise you, even at the thought of this, because Rob is our White Wolf DM, and he has it's called World of Darkness, right?
Name.
Donovan.
Have to edit that.
Yeah. Donovan is the White Wolf DM.
One of them.
And he will specialize in World of Darkness. And so that gets the idea that he's already laid out is going to be 21 and over. It's stupid. So let's get into the elemental dice. So Earth are confident, stubborn, and stable, and are resistant to influence and change. Students who embody Earth have desire to see things remain as they are, and are saddened and disturbed by change. So use Earth to resolve conflicts by holding your ground, resisting physical force, refusing to change your mind, exerting physical strength, and enduring hardship. Water represents change, agility, and the ability to adapt. People bound to water are flexible, open-minded, and supple, but can also be defensive and emotional. Students who embody water are willing to go with the flow and are open to change. Use water to resolve conflicts by expressing or controlling your emotions, avoiding an attack, making use of physical dexterity, or adapting to the situation. Fire. Fire represents aggression and passion. People bound to fire are fierce, competitive, and driven, but often have short tempers and can lash out at others. Students who embody fire have found a purpose and are driven toward a goal. Nothing can stand in their way. Use fire to resolve conflicts by attacking with words or force. Okay, and air represents both wisdom and movement. People bound to air are quick in both mind and body. They are intelligent, compassionate, and graceful, but can also be evasive and distant. Students who embody air prefer to use words over force and avoid conflict whenever possible. Use air to resolve conflicts through reasoning or rational discussion by ignoring the problem entirely through physical speed or accuracy, by running away or by getting out of the way. And then void. Void is the fifth element, and that represents fear. Some students are ruled by their fear. Others overcome it. Void is represented by the color white and the direction west. Use void to resolve conflicts by running in a blind panic, screaming hysterically, cowering in a corner, or crying pathetically. You can also use void to overcome your fear, staying awake and alert, or get a boost of adrenaline. You'll learn how to use the elemental dice to take actions and resolve conflicts in just a bit. But before we do that, you'll need to know about best friends, rivals, traits, and special techniques. So what do you think about the elemental dice?
Interesting. I would have to see it in action, but it does seem like a unique way to handle combat and tests of wills, skill challenges, things of that nature.
So this is interesting. So the best friends and rivals aspect, Donovan, is every student has someone that they trust more than anyone else, someone who they know they'll watch their back and never betray them. Select one of your fellow players, students, as your best friend. Now select another player's student as your rival. A rival may be someone your student hates with all his or her heart, someone they compete against, or someone they just don't like much. Remember to write the names of your best friend and rival on the school record in the spot provided. Keep in mind that your admiration or dislike for other students may not be mutual. The student you choose as your best friend might not choose you as their best friend. They may even decide to make you their rival.
Frenemies!
If your best friend or rival dies during the game, you must choose another player student to take their place. Keep in mind that your best friend and rival cannot be the same person. We'll talk about the importance of best friends and rivals in the taking actions and resolving conflict section.
So, essentially, what it seems like they're doing there is your best friend's got your back and your rival is something to strive to. So if you kill your rival, then you have to choose another rival. If your best friend dies, you're going to need someone else to rely on. And considering of the 50 students, when you choose your characters, you get to pick that. That's not already determined. So you could play this game many times and have a multitude of variations on who your best friends and rivals are, including at the table.
Yep.
It's like you could write me down as your best friend, but I'm like, rival, you're totally my fucking rival. The only reason why we're chilling is because I'm looking for a way to take you down. I mean, I like that. That's
or to
cool.
get more kills than you.
And it's like, oh, okay, we're doing this, fine. I'm gonna kill more people than you. You're gonna be my last kill, my trophy. That sort of thing. Some fucking next level, psych shit.
It's gonna be good. Traits. Each student has areas in life that they excel in. Special talents, hobbies, natural abilities, relationships, or possessions that set them apart from their fellow students. These are represented by traits. Some traits represent significant parts of the student's life that are obvious to everyone. Others describe small details that may only be important to them. Some traits represent secrets the students keep from even their family. Others embody moments of pride that could be shared with everyone. Handsome might be a trait. Tall for her age might also be a trait. So might good with computers or stood up to bullies. Not all traits are positive. Parents just got divorced or drug addict are perfectly acceptable traits as well. Each student has 3 traits. One based on their friends and family, one based on their hobbies, and one based on their personality. When you select your student, you'll notice they already have 1 or 2 of these filled in on their student record. It's up to you to fill the rest. This is your chance to flesh out your student. We'll talk how to use traits later. Traits based on family and friends. Social interaction with friends, classmates, teachers, and relatives is an important part of your student's life. Choose a trait that represents or describes a relationship with the person your student is close to. Suggested friends and family traits are slept with their best friend's sister, needs to please her teacher, friends with everyone, orphan, or trust no one. Traits based on their hobbies. Students' free time is at a premium, and what your student chooses to do when she doesn't have to do anything speaks volumes about who they are. Choose a trait based on your student's hobby, interests, or favorite pastime. Suggested hobbies are likes to ride the bike, can't hold their breath for 4 minutes, quit the kendo club, is really into clothes, hacker, or could bring tears to listeners' eyes with their singing. And then personality. Take a moment to think about who your student is and what's important to them. Then choose a trait you feel represents your student's personality. A student's blood type, Junichi animal, and strongest Godai element each say something about their personality. So you may want to take those into consideration. Suggested personality traits are obnoxious, can make boys do anything they want, nervous around girls, thrives on conflict, in love, and is very forgiving.
Oh boy, that's a lot.
So 3 traits based on each of those. So family, friends, hobbies, and personality. That's a lot to choose from. That's almost a guaranteed unique character each time.
Mm-hmm. And you got to do this for 50 characters.
It's going to be fun. That's going to be a lot.
That's
still a little bit of work.
I see my potential first problem with this game.
Mm-hmm.
So you do your first character, you're getting ready to play, and then your character dies. Okay. So your next character, when you get to choose these things, you're going to optimize them a little bit better. And if they die, you do I can see this being a progression of optimization when there shouldn't be any. So the only solution to that I can see out the gate is when you start this game, have everyone pick, like if you got the 5 players, have everyone pick 10 characters and fill out these sheets in advance. They pick their starting characters, and you, as the superintendent, you take the remainder, so that these changes cannot be made. So unless, of course, they die. If they die, then you remove them from the pool for each person
purpose.
And just move forward.
Yeah. So minimal customization if you already do the pre-created characters, it sounds like, and then you get little things like that make it still customizable, but for the most part, it's like this is how the characters are. You get to pick like they said, 2 of them should already be filled out, and it's your last option to see how you approach it. Special techniques. Adrenaline and fear can combine to allow an individual to accomplish amazing things. The battleground for Classroom Deathmatch had been witness to feats of ingenuity and desperation that border on the supernatural. In fact, Japan has a long history of students who possess secret, untapped supernatural, psychic, or religious powers. Within each student lies hidden potential that will manifest itself in the form of special technique. These special techniques are near superhuman abilities that students can use in moments of desperation. Some special techniques take the form of a devastating attack, while others allow students to perform impossible stunts or overcome incredible odds. Special techniques are an optional rule for groups who prefer a fantastic supernatural flair to offset the gritty and fatalistic flavor of Classroom Deathmatch. Special techniques bring a fantasy element into the game that serves to soften its harsh edge. Your group should decide before the game begins if you want to use or make use of special techniques, or you'd rather have a more realistic Classroom Deathmatch game. Find out how to make special techniques later in this book.
Okay, I like that idea. Because you could literally make a ruling that if we're doing special techniques, it's got to be goofy as fuck.
Oh yeah. Just to offset the ridiculousness of it. Oh yeah, absolutely. I even like I don't know what kind of characters are in here, but if you have like a fanboy of anime,
you're gonna have one of those at least. You're gonna have a fat kid. You're gonna have the pretty girl. You're gonna have that ugly girl.
You're gonna have the super
ugly
nerd
guy.
You're gonna have the super fanboy.
Oh Jesus, yeah.
If you have the super fanboy, one of them's, I don't know. Like I could see Theodore pulling off a Yu-Gi-Oh thing where he tries to draw a card and like a blue eyes or something comes out of the card and just eats the person.
Or the fat kid who can't be hurt because his special technique is basically his body's like rubber, so attacks just bounce off of him for that period of time.
So, I don't know, maybe like a laxative is what puts him down.
That's a thing.
It's got to be an internal injury, and that's already going to be kind of hard enough to deduce. Alright, so now we have here taking actions and resolving conflicts. So, Classroom Deathmatch is the toughest challenge a student will ever face. The contest was designed to force students into life or death conflicts. Students must kill or be killed. There is no other option. During game of Classroom Deathmatch, your students will eventually encounter conflict of some kind. What counts as a conflict? Well, one student trying to kill another is definitely a conflict, and probably will be the most common kind. But if your student gets into an argument with a friend about the best place on the battleground to hide, that's a conflict as well. A conflict doesn't have to involve another person. If your student falls into a lake and can't swim, then the conflict becomes whether he will drown. If your student needs to give a friend first aid before they bleed to death, that's a conflict too. And here are the 6 steps you need to follow to start a conflict and see it through. Step 1. Announce the conflict. Step 2. Take an action. Step 3. Resolve the action. Step 4. Respond to the action. Step 5. Continue the round. Step 6. See if the conflict is resolved. I like that.
I think that 3 and 4 need to be flipped around, because how do you resolve an action before you start the action?
Well, let's see. Announce the conflict. Either the superintendent or one of the students may announce a conflict during the scene. If a student announces a conflict, then he has the option to act first. If the superintendent announced the conflict, then he will choose who acts first. Each character taking part in the conflict gets to take an action. This includes characters played by the superintendent. Once each student has taken an action once each student has taken an action, the player that initiated the conflict can choose to continue into a new round by taking another action. Announce the conflict by telling the other students what is happening. It's all right to announce a conflict and at the same time state a goal. Let's say you announce Aoki's back is turned to me, so I think I'm going to shoot her. You can also announce a conflict without including any goal. For example, we hear someone coming up the path. Other examples of conflict include, I'm going to sneak up that group of students and see what they're doing. I'm going to argue that killing is wrong and plead with my friends to put down their weapons. Yamada is running towards you with a bloody machete in his hand. Taking an action. Now that the conflict has been announced, you'll take your action. Announce an action and roll an elemental die. Do you want to shoot Aoki in the back? Roll a fire die. Do you want to trip her as she walks by? You roll a fire die for that as well. Hide from her? Roll a water die. Maybe instead you'll engage her in conversation. Draw her out and convince her to team up with you. Roll an air die for that. In Classroom Deathmatch, you'll use 4 types of dice. 12-sided, 10-sided, 8-sided, and 6-sided. The type of dice you'll roll depend on your student's popularity. For more information, see how popularity affects students below. A result of 5 or more on any roll is a success. So the higher the die, the more likely you'll succeed.
Which is why they didn't use the 4.
And which is why they don't use 20. That's too high. That's good. I like that. Let's see. A result of 5 or more is a success. Anything else is a failure. You can roll multiple die of the same elemental type to try to increase your chances of success. If the result of any of these dice is a 5 or more, then you succeed. So you only need 1 success. It's not like vampire or mage or something where you roll 12 d10s.
But is there a way to eliminate successes? Because they do have that in the White Wolf systems. Yeah, you're rolling multiple die, and you get successes based off of like a predetermined value. For example, oh, you want to do this. Okay, the difficulty is 7. You need at least 1 success, right?
Right.
You roll 7 dice. You get 3 successes, 7 or higher. But you also rolled 3 ones.
So
those ones negate those successes. So you can have a totally neutral outcome where, you didn't succeed, but you didn't, overtly fail. It wasn't a crit fail, but, let's say the action is to climb a wall. Okay, you need 3 successes. You need 3 7s or higher. Well, you start to climb the wall, you roll your dice, you get 3 7s and 3 1s and 1 neutral die. Because, 7. Okay, so you start climbing the wall, you don't get anywhere.
You don't hurt yourself, but you don't...
You're trying to, but you can't seem to... The ultimate result of that is you tried to climb the wall, but you couldn't find anything that you could get a good enough grip on to pull yourself up.
Right.
Now, if that last die had been a 7 or higher, then you managed to pull it off because that's the success that you need. But if that last die had been a 1, you get to a certain point and fall and possibly injure yourself.
Right. So let's see. If the result of any of these is 5 or more, you succeed. After you roll a die, you must then remove it from the number of elemental dice you have available.
Oh, there we go. That's it right there.
So it's not so much do you have or how do you eliminate successes. It's
you have a limited pool to draw from.
Yeah. So that's the drawback is that there's no instant regenerating of the die. If you have no more elemental dice of a certain type, then you can no longer take actions associated with that element. Your student will have to find another way to resolve their problem.
Okay. No. Go ahead. We'll get to the resolve. I kind of read ahead.
Okay. For example, if you have 3 fire dice available and you'll roll them all to shoot Aoki in the back, then you will no longer have any fire dice available to you until the next day. You'll have to find another way to resolve conflicts until then. Elemental dice only replenish when the superintendent makes his morning announcement at 6 a.m. each day or during flashback scenes. So be careful that you don't run out of dice before the day is over.
So you could totally bone yourself.
Oh, yeah.
I like that. That's dope.
Okay.
You'll like this part, though.
Step 3, resolve the action. If your role is a success, then your best friend gets to describe the nature of the success. He'll describe how you level your pistol and fire, sending a bullet cleanly into Aoki's head and putting the poor whimpering girl out of her misery. If the role is a failure, then the job of the describing it falls to your rival. Your rival has free reign to describe how your shot misses. Aoki, and she turns and charges at you with her hatchet, or how your gun backfires and explodes in your hand, ripping off 3 of your fingers and driving hot metal into your chest and throat. Your best friend and rival gets to describe the results even if their students aren't there to witness them. The superintendent can choose to describe the actions of the characters he controls, or can let another player do it for them. I like that. That's pretty cool.
That's the part that it was like, so if you're playing at a table of friends and you chose, like, for example, that previous little bit where you chose me as your best friend, but I chose you as my rival, you're not going to know it until that moment. And it's like, you failed. All right, let me describe this. And you're just going to be like, bitch, what? Like, wait, why are you my rival? Dynamics and conflict at the table. Done right.
Done right.
Oh, well, potentially done right. It really, like, some people get in their feelings about the choices of other players. Yeah. Like, you could be like, wait, what? Dude, what are you doing? Why are you my rival? It felt right. But I made you my best friend. And, dude, it's a game.
It's a game. That's what we're doing here.
Like, I know you would never react like that, but you'd be like, okay, I wasn't expecting that. Now I know.
Partially I was. I know you. It would depend on who I'm playing with and if I expect it from them.
Yeah, but sometimes people do unexpected things too, but, you know.
But, yeah, I could probably see, for the sake of it, like, Theo purposely making Sarah the rival each time just to get to her. I could see it. I'm not saying he would, but I'm saying I could see it.
I could see it too, but I could see Sarah doing something like that out of spite.
So, respond to the action. As soon as your reaction is resolved, any other student involved in the conflict can announce that they want to respond to your action. They may then take an action that is in direct response to your own action. This action is resolved by described above, with its success or failure described by the student's own best friend or rival. Only one student may respond to an action. If more than one character announces they want to make a response, then they shoot for rock, paper, scissors. That can be determined. Which character gets to take the action. If there are no other students or characters involved in the conflict, then this step should be skipped. So that's the response to the action that you wanted to find out why they should be flipped. This is literally somebody else that's in the scene with them that wants to make a response. So they get to take an action that's in direct response. So, if 2 people are going up against Aoki and the gun fails and the rival describes the one person being killed, the other person has an opportunity to attack Aoki then still.
Mm-hmm. Unless the other person is on Aoki's side, in which case it's a 2-on-1 fight.
Yeah, so, something like that. Continue the round. You now have announced your conflict, taken your action, the result of which was described based on your success, and given others a chance to respond to it. Now it's someone else's turn. The student who you took your action against now has a chance to take an action of their own. She'll also roll to see if her action succeeds, and her best friend or rival will describe their success or failure as well. You or another student will also have a chance to respond to their action as described above. If no other student was the target of your action, then the student sitting to your left gets to take the next action instead. Once every student involved in the conflict, including players played by the superintendent, has taken a turn, then the round ends, and it's time to move to the next step and see if the conflict has been resolved. Once every student has had a chance to take an action, then the player who announced the conflict must decide if he wants it to continue into a new round. If he decides to continue, he can do so by taking an action as normal. If he decides he wants to end the conflict, he must make an action that will remove him from the conflict, such as using an air die to run away. If the action is a success, then he will leave the conflict, and the next student must choose whether they will take an action or attempt to leave the conflict, and so on and so on. If every student agrees that the conflict has reached its conclusion, then the conflict immediately ends and the students do not have to take an action to leave. Conflicts usually end when the student that initiated a success or fails at their stated goal. Sometimes this is simple. So that's it, really. There's really not much else to it. It's literally just resolve the conflict and go. But, that brings me to a thought. So if you end up having, and this is an example of how the conflict would go, but, both of us understood it. I'm not going to bother reading over that. You guys could look up Classroom Deathmatch core book and read this over too. But
also, if in the future you want us to do more thorough explanations on these things, please let us know. This is a new thing for us, so we're going to try and keep the format flexible so that we can serve the needs of the community at large, and not just the people who listen to us, but by all means, send other people who need to know these things this link so that they can learn. That's what we want. But, send us suggestions for what you would like to see. Do you want more information? Do you want more practical examples? Do you want less explanation or less exposition even? Please let us know. We're going to try and make this appropriate for everyone and easily digestible.
Very easy. So, how do I know what type of elemental dice to use? The descriptions of the 5 go die elements earlier in the book offer guidelines for using elemental dice. Earth dice are used for actions involving physical strength and endurance. Void is used for acting in actions of fear. But these are just guidelines. As you play the game, your group will develop its own sense of which elemental dice are appropriate for each type of action. There's nothing wrong with using an elemental die type in an unconventional way, as long as you could justify its use to your fellow players. If you want to, you could sit down before you start playing and decide as a group exactly what each element can be used for. That makes sense.
But I believe that the explanations for the elements themselves is pretty spot on for this. So I really don't see any real need to edit that.
Right. Now, if we were playing a more supernatural game, and wanted to add heavy elements of anime in, we could potentially make the quote-unquote elemental dice give you elemental-based abilities depending on what you're doing with them. But other than that,
that's also a possibility, but one that... I would really like to play this game before exploring that idea.
Oh, yeah, of course.
Because, it's one thing to say, hey, this would be a good idea, but if you've never played, then, maybe that idea that you have is not applicable. And then when you play it, then you're like, you know what? That sounded like a good idea at the time, but the reality is, nope, this would just complicate something that already works.
Right. So, can students controlled by the superintendent announce and participate in the conflict? Yes, superintendent-controlled characters, including students, soldiers, animals, and anything else, can be announced and participate in conflicts in the same way as students. Are we really supposed to fight each other? Sure. Classroom Deathmatch is all about player versus player conflict.
PvP at its best.
Someone just killed my student. Can I still make a response to this even though my student is dead? No. If the description of the action includes your student dying, then your student is dead.
Once your student is... When your student is dead, she can't respond to actions even if she was the target of that action. However, if your student was only described as fatally wounded or dying,
then you can still respond.
In fact, until someone blatantly declares your student to be dead, you should assume that they are still alive and functional. The description, Aoki falls to the ground with a gunshot wound to the head, does not mean that Aoki is dead, although she might be. The description, Aoki falls to the ground dead with a gunshot wound to the head, clears the matter up nicely.
I tried to push my friend out of the way so she wouldn't get caught in the blast of a landmine, but I failed and my rival described how we are both caught in the explosion and killed. What the fuck? Can she do that? Yeah, that sounds about right. You should go ahead and roll to select a new student. Classroom Deathmatch is a very dangerous contest. It is important to remember that the consequences and benefits of a student's action should be commensurate with the action itself. It might be unreasonable for Tomo's best friend to describe her finding a loaded shotgun behind some bushes when Tomo rolls a success to duck for cover. By the same token, Tomo's failure at finding her flashlight in the dark shouldn't be described by her rival Tomo stumbling around in the dark till she trips down some stairs and breaks her neck. In each of these examples, the description of the success or failure is probably too extreme, although it will be up to the players as a group to decide what counts as too much in their game. So that's good. So they pretty much all get to say like, hey, that does not warrant a
that makes
doesn't warrant
the initial example of pushing your friend out of the way so that she wouldn't get caught in the blast of a landmine. Well, if she stepped on the landmine, unless you're fucking Superman, the blast radius of a typical mine, I think, is like 10 feet. I think. I could be wrong. But
25.
Okay. You pushing me out of the way of a blast radius of landmine that I stepped on, you're not pushing me 25 feet. You're well within the kill zone, and so am I. We're both dead, or at the very least, extremely maimed and going to die very soon if there isn't a third person there to immediately tend our wounds.
Now, I could see the only possible explanation is if you managed to throw,
the only way
a heavy plated piece of metal or something. I mean, unless you want to get really friggin' anime with it, is, instead of just pushing out of the way, you do a whole baseball slide, grab it, and then chuck it really fast.
Landmines are usually buried in the ground. You're not picking that up.
I'm just saying, though.
And again, I know this is kind of nitpicky, but it's like, it's a landmine. It's designed to kill and do damage in a large radius. And what if the superintendent describes it as an anti-tank mine?
Or you know what? It might be I think you're right. I think it's less than 25 feet. Because I'm thinking about that. I'm like, 25 feet sounds larger.
I think it's like depending on the mine, I think it's up to 10 feet. But an anti-tank mine,
those are meant to take down tanks.
Exactly. Which means it's got a nasty blast radius and an incredible amount of power. If you're like within 10 feet of that thing going off, you're dead. You're not surviving that. People driving tanks take heavy injury. And the tanks, that rollover, if they're not flat out destroyed, are basically unusable at that point.
Because the treads will be gone. There's no way to...
The human body's not nearly that durable. Now, if they use, say, the Earth dice and some of their, the supernatural ability to fucking tank that damage, well, shit, if you walk away from that man is a born survivor. That woman is a born survivor. Fuck them, I'm not even going to try killing them.
You know what? If you succeeded in something like that with the Earth die, here's what I would quantify, depending on what they have on them. You're talking about a landmine. I mean, I know we're kind of carrying on about this, but...
We can always edit this if necessary.
Yeah. This
I know you didn't really want to do a lot of
I'm just saying, this isn't edit-worthy, but, I mean, I'm just saying, but if you're going to pass, if you were to pass a check like that, against a landmine, there should be something, I mean, I would even argue that it fizzles out and it's less of an explosion, more of a shockwave. the explosive itself fails, but maybe there's like a shockwave from it, so you don't really take heavy damage. You'll like get some scratches from shrapnel, but I mean, you might just get lucky like that.
Not likely.
Not likely.
I mean,
I'm just saying
though. If it fizzles, it fizzles.
Something
and
like
how
that.
many high school students do you know can disarm a fucking mine?
It's true.
I mean, maybe if they grew up in a place where mines are incredibly common and that's something you got to look out for.
Or you have a dad who's a combat vet and just
or grandpa
expert. Or a grandpa who's a combat vet and just
when I was in World War II, this is how we dismount our mines. Stay your ass there, boy. I'm like, yes, grandpa, I'm not moving.
I tried to so there's that. So the description of our success and failure is all up to our best friend and rival. Can they say anything they want? Pretty much, you'll figure out pretty quickly that the best part of Classroom Deathmatch is getting to describe other players' actions. As a best friend or rival, you have unlimited latitude and authority to describe events in any way you want. Feel free to lavish your description with all kinds of outrageous details. So they push for the outlandish and the ridiculous, but they don't want the unfairity of, especially I guess since you can technically pick on a character if you really wanted to, that doesn't make sense. But if they go ahead and do the whole for an example, a friggin' wall falls on you, you just flat dead. Whoa, hold on. Why couldn't I tank a wall? You didn't say how big the wall was, what material it's made out of, and I've actually personally I have had a drywall fall on me before. Flat off the wall, fell on me, and it didn't break around me. My body wasn't happy, but I wasn't dead.
You were just kind of like, owie.
I was.
This was not fun.
When I worked for a contractor as freelance, that hurt like a motherfucker, and I was not happy for a couple days. But I went back to work the next day. You better believe. My boss didn't want me lifting anything, but I said fuck him, and I was even more sore the day after. But regardless.
You do what you gotta do.
Exactly.
I do think that them having unlimited ability to describe what happens is a little much. I think that ultimately the superintendent should determine if you cross that line or not.
I think that would be a better idea. However, what I will say is I like the student body having the idea of giving it the person that makes the action, they don't get a say in it. The rival and the best friend, I agree with. And then you should, hey, guys, the rest of the student body, is it acceptable? And if it's a tie or something, the superintendent could be tiebreaker.
If there's a dispute, have the other players as students decide, yeah, that was too much for a success, or even for a failure, that's a little extreme.
Right.
And if there's no consensus, having the superintendent as a tiebreaker, that does make sense.
Okay, so then there's I'm dead and there are no more students to play. What now? Each Classroom Deathmatch starts with a full class of 50 students, but as the game draws to a close, the number of students available to play will slowly drop to 0. If you die and there are no longer any students available, then you're shit out of luck. Don't worry though, because this game will probably be over soon anyway.
Yeah.
That's true, because if there's no more students left,
if you're playing in a game of 5 with 5 people, not counting the superintendent. There are no more students left. That means with your death, there are 4 people left on the battlefield. That game is basically done.
Not every student is equal. There is always one girl who rises above the rest and is admired and praised by her friends, and there's always one boy who is teased and made fun of because he still collects Pokemon cards. In Classroom Deathmatch, players vote to determine which student is the most popular. These votes should take place at 6 a.m. each day after the superintendent makes his morning announcement. Superintendents may wish to call for a vote at other times as well, especially if something has happened that may increase or decrease a student's popularity. Voting should be done in secret. Each player should write down the names of the player-controlled students they want to see as most popular and least popular, and hand them to the superintendent. Students cannot vote for themselves. The student with the most popular votes gains the title of most popular student, while obviously the student with the most least popular votes gains the title of least popular. In case of a tie, the superintendent can cast a deciding vote. So So they definitely recommend at least 4 people with this. So, I don't know. We'll see what happens. How popularity affects the students. So, student popularity affects the game in a very real and important way. When your student takes an action and uses their elemental dice, the type of dice he uses is dependent on his popularity. Most popular students will always roll 10-sided dice, while least popular students will always roll 6. All other students roll 8-sided dice. Because your student always rolls 5 or better to succeed in an action, it's easy to see why being popular is a huge. Oh.
You scrolled up.
Oh, I did. There we go.
Huge disadvantage.
It's easy to see why being unpopular is a huge disadvantage. All students have their starting popularity written on the students' records already, and it's completely possible that more than one student will start the game as most or least popular. It's also possible that none of you will start as most or least popular students. That's fine. Your student's popularity will likely change during the game as votes are taken, and after the first popularity vote, your group of players will only have one most popular and one least popular student. If a player must bring a new student into the game because their last student died, then the student uses the popularity listed on their student record until the next vote.
That actually makes sense.
Using traits. The traits let you increase the size of an elemental die when making an action related to that skill. Or that trait. In this way, a 6-sided die becomes an 8-sided die, and an 8-sided die becomes a 10-sided die, and 10 becomes 12. A student with the I'm the fastest girl in class trait would be able to increase the size of the dice used in her air roll to be able to run the dog that's chasing her. Students should always be able to justify using a trait to increase their die size. You can only use one trait per die roll, and once a trait has been used, it cannot be used again in the same scene. You can also not stack 2 traits to raise an 8 to a 12-sided die. Using special techniques. Each special technique takes the form of a short description such as perfect aim, I won't die till you do, or judo takedown. What a special technique does is how it is used, it is entirely up to the player. A student can use special technique to perform a near supernatural feat. Your special technique is bound to your highest go die element, so if you want to use it, you'll have to make an action using that element.
I just had a thought for a special technique.
Mm-hmm.
You know there's going to be one character in this game that's probably a horror hound.
Oh, yeah.
The Voorhees special. The ability to just tank damage.
Man.
Like, they use this special technique, and, you know, people are coming at him with axes and machetes, and they're just, like, taking it like a champ. Yeah, they're getting hurt, but they're not getting hurt.
A student that can use their special technique to perform near supernatural feat. Your student technique is bound to your highest go die element. I just read that. So you'll have to make an action using that element. Declare an action and tell the other players that you'll be using your technique. It's okay to say stuff like, here comes my super bento lunch special technique. Once your action is declared, go ahead and roll all the dice you have left in that element. That's right, roll them all. But instead of rolling whatever dice you normally roll, you'll roll a 12-sided dice. Here's an example.
Oh boy.
So the example pretty much, they have five fire dice left. So they'll roll 5 12-sided dice. So you get an instant 12-sided no matter what the case is.
It's your special technique, but at that point you're fucking spent. Till the next day, or a flashback.
A special technique is an astounding, if not supernatural feat. When describing the success or failure of a special technique, the best friend or rival must go out of their way to embellish the action. Don't be afraid to describe how the shockwave from a dragon fist shattered windows for blocks and knocked the spine clear out of the recipient. Or how the Super Bento Lunch Special brought someone back from the brink of death. Descriptions of special techniques should be like epic cutscenes in your video game, full of amazing stunts that are beyond normal human ability. Descriptions of failures when using special techniques should be just as epic as description of success. Here are a couple of examples, which they're okay, you know, they're fine, they're cool. why use special techniques? Special techniques exist to allow players to add some supernatural flair to their game and emulate some of the crazy stunts and special powers found in the films and manga that Classroom Deathmatch was inspired by. Beyond that, players can use special techniques to make an action that virtually cannot fail. Use your special technique to escape death, kill an unstoppable opponent, or to make a real attempt to escape the contest. Like traits, the description of special techniques are incredibly subjective techniques, like Eagle's Eye or I Know Your Weakness. Could do almost anything as long as you could justify their use. You can use special techniques to accomplish just about anything. There's a lot to roll through.
Yeesh.
Kills, morning announcements, and gaining back elemental die. Okay, so in short,
it basically explains
each one. So morning announcements each morning at 6 a.m. The superintendent will make an announcement. There will be a broadcast to all of the battleground. After this announcement, each student can roll as many void dice as they want up to their maximum, regardless of whether they have any and void dice available to them. For each success, a student gains back 3 elemental die of any type. That's pretty good.
Okay, that actually kind of balances the equation a little bit, because if you have to wait till basically the end of the scene, as it were, the end of the day cycle and back again to get him, then, or cutscene, or flashback, that's what they were saying, flashback. That's actually kind of subjective. So if if you are by yourself and you got mobbed by 5 people and you blew all of your dice to either win or escape, you've got nothing to defend yourself with at all. So that random dog from earlier pages can literally just bend you over barrel and make you his bitch in the most literal sense of that expression.
Pretty much.
But being able to use void dice to get some of them back
at the morning announcements. And so technically what they're saying here is that the higher your void dice, because it says roll as many void dice as they want up to their maximum. So the higher your void dice, the more successes you get for getting back dice of a certain element. Which means if you're really stupid aggressive, you can just get back all that fire bullshit if you want to. Well, and it's 3 of one element per success. So really, void is like one of the more important elements that you get.
Yeah, you're going to want that to be pretty high. But I also suspect that because there's an elemental association with each student. When you kill students, I think you get back element die equivalent, appropriate to the student that you killed.
Let's see. Kills. The morning announcement is also the same time where players count their kills. Every time your student kills another student, soldier, or another other character, mark the character's name down on your student record. There's a spot for kills on the left side. Every morning after the announcement, students can select a new trait for each kill they have collected.
Oh.
Since the last announcement, or instead of selecting a trait, a student can decrease her maximum dice in one of her go die elements by 1 and increase her maximum in another by 1. And this change is permanent. So if you were weak in one element, you can literally substitute, and that's pretty cool. I like that. Remember, a student can never have more of a maximum of 25 dice spread through their go die. So you can literally only have a maximum of 5 if you were to spread it out evenly.
Yeah.
So that's the way I would do it, I guess. I guess I would do a maximum of 5. That would make sense. So if it's a 25 dice spread... And I guess if you were playing this for a while, I guess you can go really hardcore if you're doing super anime bullshit and really wanting to make this super powered, but that's experimentation after playing for a while. God, we're just getting to part 4. Oh my god. This is a deep dive.
This was a lot deeper than I was. Actually, I can't say that. I did not know what to expect with this. Although we're gonna have to touch on the panty explosion thing because it seems like that came first, and that will probably offer a lot more insight into this.
We'll have to try to get a PDF of Panty Explosion and read it to you guys at some point. So, but we'll get there. So, setting scenes. Scenes are where the action of Classroom Deathmatch takes place. Anytime your students do anything in the game, they are doing it in the context of a scene. Scenes can be simple and short or complex and lengthy. Scenes can involve just a single student or can involve a number of students and other characters. In Classroom Deathmatch, the students and superintendent work together to set scenes that will drive the game forward towards its bloody conclusion. Now, I'm just saying, heads up, if I run this game, I'm doing it in an enclosed battle city.
I do believe that was the point.
Well, it just says that well, from what I remember them saying at the beginning of this was that, you're in a battle royal situation, which it could be like, you're out in the friggin' forest for all you know. Mm-hmm. But I would run it in like an enclosed battle city where it's a giant dome, kind of like Arkham City is, so you run around through stores and you're doing all this crap, and it's an entirely like urban-based like scene. Here are a couple examples of scenes like cliffs, an empty cafe, the old school shed. So it could be literally anything from there. When do we set a scene? Set a scene anytime you want your students to do something. Do you want your students to meet up with another group in the woods? Set a scene describing it. Will your student explore an old warehouse at the end of the block? Will they turn on each other in the night? Will two of them sneak off and make out? You'll want to set a scene for any of these events. If you can't think of anything you want to see happen, then don't suggest a scene. Let someone else who has a cool idea do it instead. And how do we set the scene? Setting a scene is easy and fun, and once you get the hang of it, you could do it in just a few seconds. Each scene is comprised of 5 elements based on the go die. Each element represents an important aspect of the scene. So there's location, people, mood, action, and fear. So you have where does the scene take place, who is here, what's the mood of it, what's going on, and does the scene have any frightening elements?
Like a whole bunch of bodies hanging off of meat hooks in the warehouse.
And all that shit.
That, or a quiet scene by a river, lots of plants and it's moonlit and less fear, more ambiance.
So we set the scene, now what? Now you play. A game of Classroom Deathmatch is a series of scenes strung together that tell the story of the bloody contest that will result in the deaths of all but one of the students. Each scene brings you slowly closer to the end of the game. So I really do like this game so far. I totally want to play a game of this, and I need to, and we need to record it for the show. But in all honesty, I'm heavily digging this, and I think with the group that we normally play with, and including some people that we don't normally play with, would have a kick out of this.
They would totally fucking dig this, yeah.
This is like weeaboo fantasy for people who love animes like this.
I'm not really big on the anime thing, but the concept is good. I mean, I liked Battle Royale. That shit blew my fucking mind.
You're also a heavy depictor, or you're also a heavy person that's into like a good fight. Good fight with good premise.
Good fights are hard to do, though. They really are. But this, part of the reason why I enjoyed Battle Royale so much, why it stuck with me, and why this game really kind of grabs me, is the idea that, well, look, here in the West, I'm not going to say, the United States or Canada, or I'm not going to say any of the European countries, we have this mentality about kids and teenagers and whatnot that in some places in the East they don't really have, or at least they don't have it as ingrained as we do. I'm sure there's a reason for it, but I never really looked into it. This game is specifically aimed at that, and this game will most likely make a lot of people uncomfortable because the idea of child on child violence really upsets people. I think it's probably because they don't feel like children have violent tendencies. And the problem is that, children do. They have wants and fears. And, while some children run from scary situations, others, bare their teeth and growl right back at it. They have zero fear. And for the most part, no context for that fear.
Right.
So something like this, deliberately putting them in that situation, like some people just like they bugs the hell out of them. And don't get me wrong, I would never advocate something like this, but as a storytelling element,
this is right up your alley.
It's got all the right things. It hits you on an emotional level. The characters themselves are put in a situation they would never normally consider. Like, adults consider violence, at least on some level. Kids, teenagers especially, they still have that mindset that they're fucking immortal, that they're invincible, that the whole universe revolves around them. And something like this puts them in a situation that strips them of all those illusions of how they believe the world to work. And they react a lot differently than an adult would in the same situation. Right. We expect bad things to happen. Your average kid and teenager, bad things happen to other people. Those are just stories people tell, images you see on the TV screen, on your computer screen, on your cell phone. But they're almost like fantasies. And then you have this happen. Now it's no longer a fantasy. Now it is a very real fact of life. Some people will fold. Some people will run. And some people, because let's face it, like adults, kids aren't always all that good.
Right.
Everyone has a little darkness in them, and in a situation like this, you'll have that one kid that might seem like the golden child. They do no wrong. But in their heart, they have that darkness, and now they have the perfect theater to explore. How dark is it, and how deep does it run?
Yeah. Yeah, this definitely, I'll say this out loud, like, Donovan's campaign, when he brought it to me for the channel, and I'm like, you do realize we're going to put a lot of, because I'm uncomfortable with the prospect of the campaign, because I don't think I'm going to be going into it. We'll see. I'm not sure yet, but even I'm heavily uncomfortable into it. But it's true though. It's a lot. This is a pretty dark tabletop in comparison to a lot of the stuff you have out there.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I know we briefly went over 13th Age at one point, and it's essentially a Dungeons and Dragons version 1 or version 3, remake, and it's okay. It has what we looked at, the character creation anyway, and so it has some issues, but this is like just straight dark in its own right. Now we have flashback scenes. So we were talking about flashback scenes briefly before, but sometimes remembering a moment of triumph or recalling a fond memory will be enough to carry you through a tough situation. During a conflict, a student can use an action to declare a flashback scene.
Okay, so while playing, because you can get back elemental dice from this, if you are really genuinely hard up, you can declare a flashback scene to try and recover. Clever. I like that.
And that also gives a lot of other storytelling elements back to it. During a conflict, the student can use an action to declare the scene. A flashback scene is a special scene that takes place in your student's past and reveals an important moment in your student's life that is related to or embodies one of the 5 Godai elements. Students can use a flashback scene to gain back elemental dice and must announce what type of elemental dice they wish to gain back. At the beginning of the scene, the student who declared the flashback scene will set the scene and declare the conflict. For the duration of the flashback, participating students are considered to have their full amount of elemental dice. The flashback scene can include several characters and must include at least one other character involved in the conflict that was interrupted. The student who declared the flashback scene can ask other players to take roles of other characters in the scene.
Okay,
So
that's a true roleplay opportunity that can affect the the scene that's ongoing, but gives the person who declared it a chance to recover some element dice, so that maybe the situation that they're in isn't a total wash.
Now here's something also really cool. Other participating students can gain back dice during a flashback scene as well. Let's see, hold on. Shows the student didn't make use of the element in question. Let's see, let's go back a little bit. Student who declared the flashback scene always gets to take the first action, and other students can respond to the action. Take actions of their own in the normal way. Once the conflict has been resolved and the scene is over, a vote is held to determine how many elemental dice the student who declared the flashback will receive. A flashback scene is a student's chance to gain back elemental dice by showing a moment in their life when they embodied the strengths of the element. The better this is illustrated within the scene, the more dice the student should receive. So if you are heavily trying to use wind and you're out of wind dice, you have to embody the wind go die essentially in the scene hardcore. Like, you can't try to get back wind dice and try to punch someone's face in.
No, but you could have a flashback scene where you were being chased by bullies, and you were running through the woods, and you hit that wall, as it were, where you were at the absolute limit of your stamina and they're gaining, and then something triggers you to have a surge of adrenaline or a surge of just pure will of like, fuck that, I'm not going down right now, and then boom, you just blow them away.
See, I could see the wind element doing an aggressive piece if you're like running at them and like shoulder tackling and then like, or bouncing off them somewhere,
or shoulder checking them. Like, just straight up, just like you catch them under the armpit with your shoulder and you just shove them into a wall.
Pretty much. However, if the student's actions were particularly compelling, or let's see, if the flashback shows the student did indeed make use of the element in question, then they should receive 1 or 2 dice. In most cases, a student will only ever receive 1 or 2 elemental dice. However, if the student's actions were particularly compelling, or if the scene was exponentially intense, or exceptionally intense, or moving, and the other players feel the student or the scene truly reflected the chosen element in an outstanding way, then the student may be rewarded with up to 5 elemental dice.
So that's really kind of subjective.
Yeah. Other participating students can gain back dice during a flashback scene as well. If a participating student rolls a success during a flashback scene, then they will gain back a single die of their choice at the end of the scene. So everybody gets a die back. Once a flashback scene has ended play, immediately returns to the conflict that was interrupted. The next player can immediately take their action, and if there are no actions to take, then the round ends as normal. A flashback scene can only be declared during a conflict where the stress of the situation overwhelms the student and causes their mind to wander. Only a single flashback scene can be declared during each conflict, and the same player cannot declare 2 flashback scenes in a row.
Otherwise, you could probably abuse it.
Hardcore. There's examples of flashback scenes here, and that's, all well and good. And I'm not going to bother reading through them, because like I said, if you guys want to take a look closer at this book, check out Classroom Deathmatch Core Book, 2007. You guys will probably find it out there somewhere. I had no trouble finding this. So when I was looking for tabletop books of different sorts. There is, now we're up to part 5. We're halfway through this book now, and we've been examining this son of a bitch for a while. So, before we continue, what do you think of the game so far, just out of the elements?
Like I said, it really screams that Battle Royale vibe. I mean, if you want to think of it in other terms, you can do the whole Hunger Games thing.
Right.
But let's face it, it's battle royale to tabletop. It really is. And
it kind of is.
I kind of want to get my grubby little mitts on this. I really do.
Hey, I have the PDF, so it's not like you won't have access to it. You can have it whenever you want. Because
right,
I would love to see you run this game.
Had you run it? I'd love to fucking play it.
You can do both.
I'd go fucking. I'm really curious about the characters themselves, but we'll get to that.
So you have the role of superintendent. So the role of superintendent helps help tell the story, be the bad guy, because every story needs an antagonist. Create the battleground, so it's up to you to design the battleground where this is taking place. You are playing the other students that are not chosen, so you get to choose. So you get the rest of the 50 students that the characters have not chosen.
It's like playing a fighting game with 50 characters.
Pretty much. And the superintendent and other characters. So you are the superintendent. A class of students from your high school district have been selected to participate in the Student Reform Initiative. And the task of overseeing the Classroom Deathmatch falls on you. So this is literally just explaining the dead right of like the superintendent and how they're using the other characters. Sorrow dice. Okay. 49 students will die. Only one will live. This is the stark reality of Classroom Deathmatch, and few students can bear to face it. When a student controlled by a player kills another student, the superintendent gains sorrow dice. The amount of dice gained is listed below. A student killed, 1 sorrow dice. If the student kills their rival or a member of the club, 2 sorrow dice. A student kills the best friend, 3 sorrow dice. The superintendent should keep track of all sorrow dice gained. Players regain elemental dice of their students through flashbacks or by rolling their void at the beginning of the day, after the morning announcements. Students controlled by the superintendent don't. Instead, the superintendent can sum or all of his sorrow dice to replenish the student's elemental dice. Sorrow dice are always distributed at the beginning of the day during morning announcements, and students cannot receive more dice than their original maximum. So the superintendent's like, no, bro, I ain't trying to roll void dice. I'm literally replenishing with this crap.
That actually makes a lot more sense. I mean, having them roll 40 some odd characters, that's time consuming. But just using the sorrow dice to just give a general replenishment makes it makes it easier. It streamlines it, makes the process faster, and it does not detract from the action of the game.
Right. So that's the explanation of sorrow dice. Oh, that's bloody as well.
Whew. Yeah.
It's a graphic picture of a schoolgirl having her arm chopped up, but she looks deadpan during it, so it's creepy.
She gave someone a hand.
Hardcore. So, how many dice do the crazy gun wielding students have left? We do have to assume that most of the students the superintendent has at his disposal are burning through their dice at a similar rate as the player's students. Even if these students are just hiding in bushes, they're still going to be using a few dice every day. There is an easy way to simulate this. Before introducing a new student to the scene, the superintendent should roll each of the students' elemental dice. The students get to keep every die that comes up a success, but loses any that result in a failure. Remember, the superintendent can always use this sorrow dice to buff up a student when as he controls. How do you run Classroom Deathmatch? Classroom Deathmatch is really straightforward game. Students are trapped in a battleground and injected with a tiny bomb that can be detonated at any time. They are given
Battle Royale.
Right.
Excuse me.
They are each given a weapon and told that if more than one of them is alive at the end of 5 days, the superintendent and the JSDF will kill them by all detonating their nanobombs. There can only be one winner. It really is that simple. As the superintendent, you must learn how to facilitate the game for your players and plan how you will use your students and sorrow dice. The players will need to get used to describing each other's actions and working together to create scenes. Even if your players never have never played the game, they'll pick it up pretty quick. Yeah, I mean, it sounds like it's a pretty easy pick up and play game. You might take you a minute to really flow with the game, but playing it sounds relatively easy.
There's another game that we have played that this kind of has some elements of.
Which one?
10 Candles.
Oh, that's right, yeah.
I mean, it's like they have set scenarios. It's very simple. The character sheet is very bare bones basic. And other than the dice system in there, the biggest mechanic are the candles.
Yeah.
And it's meant to be a quick, this game only lasts this long and then it's done.
I can see this lasting only like a single session and you'd be good.
Exactly.
Or, if you really wanted to, you break it up over 5 sessions. But, I
do think that they should have maybe more characters, like more than 50. Like, there's only 50 playing. Excuse me. Ugh, I'll have to edit that out. I think they should add more characters. Now, I'm holding judgment on that one for the moment until I see the characters. But, maybe add, like some foreign exchange students or maybe some ringers. Shit like that.
Well, they do have soldiers and they have other stuff that they can...
Yeah, but the soldiers aren't necessarily going to be going after you all the time.
True.
Again, Battle Royale, the soldiers were there, but they weren't actively hunting the kids. But when it came to certain aspects of the island that they were on, if they went somewhere they weren't supposed to, that's what the soldiers were there for. To basically help enforce the law, as it were.
So you have on the battleground, students are deposited on the battleground late in the evening of the first day. It's usually dark by this time. The manner in which students are brought onto the battleground varies from contest to contest. Sometimes armed soldiers escort students onto the battleground by foot or in jeeps. Other times they are simply shoved out of the door of the orientation center and told to run. In one memorable contest, students were given parachutes and dropped off low-flying planes into the battleground. That'd be a really cool one.
Predators. You remember that movie?
Yes.
That like dropped off. They're just basically shoved out with a parachute. Be like, oh, that's Predators.
If your players survive the first terrifying night, then they'll be around to hear the superintendent's 6 a.m. morning broadcast. Each morning at 6 a.m., the superintendent uses the battleground's built-in broadcasting to address the students. Superintendent will then read off a list of students that have been killed since the game began, or since the last broadcast, and declare which zones will be off limits at which time. Okay. Days 2 to 4. The middle days of the contest are the time when most students are killed. During this time, students will often gather together with friends. They trust and hide themselves in abandoned homes, empty buildings, or out of the way places where they think they will be hard to find. While most students believe there is safety in numbers, groups of students often die faster than individuals. Trust, even among good friends, is strained under the horrific circumstances of Classroom Deathmatch. So they're essentially just telling you, so this is where most of the murder is going to happen. The final day, this is it. The final day of the contest, only one student will survive. Usually by the final day, only a handful of students remain alive. To help speed things along, the superintendent often declares all but just a few connecting zones to be off limits. This makes it extremely difficult for the students to avoid each other, and any confrontation will often draw every surviving student in the small area. When the last student falls, the superintendent and his team of JSDF technicians carefully monitor the students and are ready to launch cleanup and retrieval teams. The moment the contest is decided, once there's only one student remaining, the superintendent gives the order and retrieval team consisting of armed soldiers and medics is dispatched to bring the winner to the CCC. Their first duty upon retrieving the winning student is to immediately administer whatever medical attention is required, including disabling the nano-explosives that was planted inside the student's body. Cleaned up teams patrol the island to make sure that no other students have survived.
So they specifically state an island.
So after Classroom Deathmatch, the winning student is usually allowed to rest for 24 hours, although some critically injured students often require much more recovery time. An award ceremony is arranged and attended by several prominent government officials, where the student receives an official commendation, a certificate of participation, a cash prize of an undisclosed amount, a full scholarship to Tokyo University or another school of their choice within Japan, and a lucrative government job upon graduation.
Oh, God.
The ceremony is very often hosted by the celebrity idol or J-pop star, and is always televised. The Blu-ray disc release of the contest always coincides with the ceremony. Although a collector's edition disc is usually released months later, that includes the ceremony itself and commentary from the winner.
Wow, how very capitalistic.
That's pretty nutty. But what if things go wrong? Well, I mean, yeah, it's bound to go wrong, but Here's a list of common problems that superintendents face. My students have found a way to escape. Escape can be fun and exciting part of Classroom Deathmatch. If the players are interested in having their students try to escape the battleground, then the superintendent should definitely consider letting them make the attempt. Each of the battlegrounds included in this book have a built-in escape option. So there are multiple battlegrounds in this book already that tell you how to escape.
Well, they have options to escape.
Right. My students are all dead by the end of the second day. This has happened more than a few times in the history of the contest. Very often, Classroom Deathmatch ends before the 5th day. My students refuse to fight at all. Players may decide that their students don't wish to fight and succeed in convincing the other players not to participate in a contest. A superintendent may find himself with 50 peaceful protesters who want nothing more than to sit quietly in the middle of the battleground. There's nothing wrong with this. At this point, the game stops being about violence and killing and moves into the realm of psychological drama as the students start discussing their situation and make arguments for and against peaceful protest. The superintendent can use the students he controls to raise questions and concerns, introduce moral dilemmas, and argue for different points of view. In a situation like this, the superintendent may want to force the students to move by declaring the zone that they are in to be a danger zone. So the superintendent can always choose to leave the students alone and let them participate in the contest in whatever way they want. If a superintendent wants to force the students to violence, he has a few other options. There's always a good chance that as hunger, thirst, and exhaustion set in, fights will break out. The superintendent could order the JSDF troops under his command to break up students, forcing them into a different part of the battleground. The most likely approach the superintendent would take is to use the battleground's broadcast system to taunt the students, creating fear and dissent. It's the end of the 5th day, and the last few students refuse to kill each other. Okay, so what? They know that if more than one of them is alive at the end of the 5th day, they'll all be killed by the explosive. Let them die. The students are attacking the CCC and fighting the JSDF. Yeah, that could happen. The superintendent shouldn't be
surprised, basically.
Right. Battlegrounds. Okay.
This is where we get into the meat of where these locations are and what to expect, at least from the superintendent's perspective.
Each battleground has 7 components. This book contains 3 ready-to-use battlegrounds, complete with maps and profiles, but you can create your own battleground if you like. This may sound time-consuming, but it's actually pretty quick. You only have to do it once. Even better, you can sit down with your students and create a battle map together. By doing this, you'll get a good idea of the kind of environment your players are interested in seeing. You'll want a piece of paper and a pen and keep track of the information you generate while creating your battleground. So you want a location. Each battleground is unique, specially selected or designed by the dedicated Classroom Deathmatch committee. Battlegrounds are usually large, isolated areas where there is a little danger of students escaping or coming into contact with civilians. Past battlegrounds have included small islands, mountain villages, or amusement parks. One popular contest took place in 16 cordoned off city blocks as students fought desperate building-to-building battles. The smallest battleground even was a derelict high school building scheduled for demolition. Zones. Each battleground is divided into a number of zones. The number of zones vary depending on the size of the battleground, but is usually 9 to 16. Several times per day, different zones are declared off limits, and students caught in those zones are shot down by the battleground's automated defense system, or have their nano-explosives detonated. Each battleground also has a central command center from where the superintendent oversees the contest. The CCC is usually a large fortified building or a bunker surrounded by heavily armed JSDF soldiers. The CCC is always off limits, and like the other zones, is clearly marked on the map for each student receives. Defenses and monitoring systems. Okay, so there's various monitoring of gun turrets and other such in here, along with GPS technology that, tracks the nanomachines. Traits. No two battlegrounds are alike. Battleground traits don't provide bonuses like the ones that students use, but they do describe the special qualities that set the battlegrounds apart. There's hazards, there's resources, there's escape routes. And the 3 battlegrounds are an island.
Top of the list.
At the top of the list.
And there's a map. Nice.
So you relatively want a 5x6, so about a 30 square map, roughly. And then you
what's
have...
the scale? Like each square could be 5 miles.
Yeah, roughly. That's what it looks like.
Mm.
I'm going to probably say each square is about 5 miles. That sounds about right, Battleground is the urban territory, so city blocks and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm. Chernobyl.
Jeez. That's actually a pretty cool... See, that one looks a lot smaller from the way that it's scaled. But that's acceptable. That works. And then the high school itself. So just a closely marked off high school, campus and all. That's not bad. That's pretty doable.
Each map has a different scale.
So part 7. All right, cool. So
weapons of Classroom Deathmatch.
We're getting down there. So let's check out to see what bullshit you can have.
Mm-hmm.
Gas-powered chainsaw, a hatchet, box of matches, pack of cigarettes, crossbow, grenade, boomerang, butcher's cleaver, a comma, a taser, a pocket knife, a survival knife, binoculars, tracking device, caltrops, revolver, semi-auto pistol, pump-action shotgun, sawn-off double-barrel shotgun, bulletproof vest, a katana, light submachine gun, throwing stars, bullhorn, laser pointer, D batteries, flashlight, police baton, can of mace, scissors, hammer, motorcycle helmet, iron frying pan, poison, chain, an Uzi, baseball bat, brass knuckles, rope, power drill, wrench, choking wire, blow dart gun, martial arts manual, silence.
What are you gonna do? Beat them with the book?
Silence automatic pistol, foghorn, flashbang grenade, landmine, chloroform, morphine, slingshot, airsoft pistol, nunchuck, can of gasoline, can of spray paint.
You skip.
Night vision goggles, glass bottle, military folding spade, flare gun, cage of snakes.
Oh my god. Really? Like, what are you gonna do? I mean, if they're snakes, they're probably poisonous.
It is. It's a poisonous snake.
And like, what you gonna? Oh, cage of snake. Single. Okay, I was about to say. You open the cage of snakes. All the snakes get out. That's it. That's your weapon. It's done. It's like, well, it's a poisonous snake. Yeah.
Well, I guess
you can't catch it again.
Well, I guess you can go ahead and chloroform somebody. If they're out, you just release the snake and just run. So where's the cage? Okay, blowtorch, gas mask, grenade launcher, nail gun, bear trap, collapsible baton, crowbar, lockpick kit, car keys, roll of 100 yen coins.
So
net.
Basically reinforce your fist.
17. What is it? Straight razor, butterfly knife, sniper rifle, throwing darts, bola. A bottle of acid, a croquet melon, a fire extinguisher, smoke grenades, fireworks. Steel-toed boots, pair of duct tape, a roll of duct tape, spear gun, umbrella, golf club, handcuffs, plunger, portable defibrillator, ping pong paddle, box cutter, laughing gas grenade, pair of pleated shoes, machete, grappling hook, crutch, tennis racket, whip, cattle prod, and a bow.
Yeah, okay.
So there's 100 options. So technically, if you want to
I think you're rolling for those.
Yeah, I would give somebody a D100, like, the 2D10s, and have them roll it, and that's what your starting weapon is.
Or, well, considering some of those are like items as well, probably be like, okay, here you go, give me a roll percentile 3 times, give me the numbers.
Well, remember, those were all weapons.
Not all of them.
No, but that's the list of weapons they said. So those are the list of random
duct
weapons.
tape is not a weapon. Neither is a vial of morphine.
Oh, I'm aware. Trust me. I'm just pointing out what they said. So you roll a D1. I'm gonna have someone roll a D100 twice. If they roll a D100 twice, those are the 2 items they start out with.
Roll it then.
Right.
No, roll it right now.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, what kind of gamer are you that you don't have the fucking dice on you? Right here. Bam. See?
My stuff's probably still packed up, so I don't take out very often. All right. All right. Well, let's see what ridiculous crap I'm gonna get.
There. And proper percentile at that.
Good. So
45.
So my first piece of bullshit is a foghorn. Cool.
Oh, Jesus.
All right.
All right, let's see what this next one is.
47. Landmine. You know what? Okay, here's what I would do. Since a foghorn just makes.
Let's see how many landmines you get.
3.
3 landmines.
So here's what I could do. So if you surprise someone with the foghorn, that motherfucker's loud. You're definitely gonna, blind or disorient someone with it.
Get one more. This is why I said 3.
61.
Mm-hmm.
You could disorient someone, throw down the landmine.
You went too far already.
61.
Gas mask.
Handy in some situation.
But see, here's the thing about landmines. You should be able, if you get the right stuff, you can rig it as a trip mine.
Yeah. So, I mean, it's all doable. I mean, like, I would hate to be the dude that gets the morphine.
Well, see, here's the thing with the morphine. If you're injured, that's going to help.
Yeah. Yeah, well...
And, of course, let's see, 2 sterile syringes and 1d6 doses of morphine. 1 dose of morphine, you should be fine. I think it's once you start getting into the, second and third dose where it can become dangerous.
Mm-hmm.
But, I mean, that's still a lot. Anyways.
Oh, no, let's see what you get. Go ahead, roll 3 times.
Oh, boy. Luck be a lady, right?
Right.
Okay, 18.
Sawed-off double-barrel shotgun.
Already doing good. 57.
Military folding spade. Not bad.
Doubles as a tool and a weapon.
Yeah.
And then 40.
A wrench.
Also a good improvised weapon and good for setting traps.
Not bad.
Eh.
Not bad.
Not bad at all. I like my odds. Of course, that fucking shotgun's gonna be loud as shit.
So...
Well, no, if I get a pillow, I could... some duct tape. I can duct tape a pillow around it. So at least that first shot might be sort of quiet.
You know what? I'm going to... Let's have a little bit of fun here. I want to try something. So let's get a D8 apiece here. Okay. So what I would like to do is, let's say for a battle reason, let's say if I want to take you out and steal your shit, probably kill you. We're going to get to roll 2 dice apiece. I'm going to say that they're, let's see what happens. But I'm going to, I'm going to blow the foghorn. Let's see if I roll a 5 or higher to to make my. I know I need another person here technically, but let's see what would happen. 7.
Okay.
And a 7.
All right.
Okay, so I would jump out if I saw you walking. I jump out and blast the foghorn, giving you like concussive moment. Now you would get a reaction. So what would you be doing?
Well, let's see.
You would have to use earth, I would guess, to try and resist the urge to clench down.
Nope.
Get another one, come on. Oh, no. Double 2s. Okay, so then you would clench down, and now I'm gonna throw my
You're throwing.
I'm gonna throw the landmine. So if I throw the landmine, if you stumble around enough, let's see if you hit it. 2.
And 8.
8. Okay, so now you need to resist and not be able to stumble into the landmine.
So this would be, I think, wind for doing something dexterous, keeping my balance.
Yeah.
8.
Cool. So you don't end up landing into it. So that means I'm essentially fucked next turn.
And it's like, boom.
Pretty much.
It's like boomstick.
Yeah. Now I guess if I wanted to see how long you would be, like how many actions, I guess you could say how many earth dice you rolled, and then if you only got one success, you're only down for the one turn. But if you missed twice, then it's 2 dice for the
right.
For it. But I mean that's okay. Well, let's see. There's other stuff that you can get. There's pencils or pens, medication, cigarettes, lighters,
makeup
and hygiene products, change of clothes, laptop computers, musical instrument, kendo gear, cell phone,
porn,
pocket
condoms,
spell
books. Okay,
So you can find a whole bunch of shit here. It's not just note on cell phones. This JSDF allows students to keep their cell phones, but interrupts all calls to locations outside the battleground. However, students can still use their cell phones to call each other. So it makes sense. Okay, now we get to meet the students.
This is what I was looking for.
Okay, so now we're getting into this. So we have Hahoko Amori, or Amoi, Fukushima Sumi. Oh yeah, I have to read it the other way. Emi Hokkaido. Yuka Shizuoka. Chao Murakami.
Chio.
Jin Nakamura. Yoko Endo, and you can clearly already see they are starting off with vastly different stats, and each of them literally has way more to it than you need. Like Yoko here, she has an earth of 1, but she has a fire of 9.
Mm-hmm.
Where the girl before her, Jin, she has an earth of 5, still a fire of 9, but her air is 2. So they're still following that whole thing, and it really depends. But these are all vastly different characters, and it's kind of neat. Ayaka Suzuki, Oki Yamada, Tori Serrano, Keiko Kano, Yumi Akugawa, Fujita Hayashi, Ao Ito, Fu Inoue, Miyoko Higa. She has an air of 1. She ain't going anywhere. Ochi Oshiro, Eriko Maeda, Mo Chinsu. Yeah, these are like I'm actually quite impressed how all these are really super neat. She's the one that has the super bento special technique. For the one below her, Aoki Oshiro, she has sneak attack. Oh, this is way too kind of funny. I like this. Kumiko Abe. Noko Sasaki. Amy Kikuchi. Sato Ito. Ryo Namamura. Hara Watasashi. Probably we have some guys here.
It looks like they did the girls first, then the guys.
Yeah. Shoido Nobunaga. Hakujo Saito. Shimada Miyamoto. Takumi Takahashi. Mark Stevens.
Mark Stevens?
Okay, then.
We'll
Tanaka
go back to him
Fuji.
real fast. Oh, he's a total white boy. So they do have an exchange student in there.
Yeah, they have quite a few people.
Technique, special technique, foreign might? Okay, yeah. I was wondering. Sorry, need to stand.
No problem. Tanaka Fuji. Yukari Kuji. Keito Odisu. Ono Hake. Roko Azuma. The kid. Yukon. That's how it looks like to me. Is Yukon Hosokawa. Inazo Ishikawa. Endo Matsushima. Kaku Nakajima. Den Okimoto. Tendo Wakayama. Endo Yanagi. Moro Tsushima. Kuchi Agawa.
What the go back up to that one. Special technique, romance healing kiss technique.
Sure.
Flask of gin, sexy scarf. Oh my god. That guy would be a total joke. I couldn't take him seriously.
Kido Kawaguchi, the volcano punch.
Oh, cell phone leather jacket.
Matsura Nikaido, unnoticeable wall, flower stealth attack.
Mm-hmm. No belongings.
Hiro Tezuka,
sumo tackle.
I
can talk my way out of anything.
Oyuka Madarame, and Nunai Tadakatsu. Jesus Christ. Panty Explosion. Using Panty Explosion characters in Classroom Deathmatch. If you've developed a schoolgirl in Panty Explosion, you may wish to use that character in Classroom Deathmatch. Since classes are randomly chosen to participate in Classroom Deathmatch, it's no great stretch of the imagination that your student and her friends might be forced into the contest. Keep in mind that any character you use in Classroom Deathmatch is likely to be killed. Don't insist on using your favorite Panty Explosion character and then complain when they get chainsawed. So, here's something really cool. Okay, now this is long-term thinking, but, ready for this? You play 50 different matches of Classroom Deathmatch.
Mm-hmm.
Take the 50 characters that survived and put them in another Classroom Deathmatch. They're returning champions.
Tournament of Champions.
Oh, that's freaking great. Psychics in Classroom Deathmatch. If you were a psychic in Panty Explosion, then you'll carry those powers over to Classroom Deathmatch. Your powers will work exactly as described in Panty Explosion rulebook, including the abilities Levitate and Explode heads. The difference, using your powers will not generate demon dice, except in the situation described below. And using a psychic action and no longer gives your rival the opportunity to describe... using... Let's see, where is it? Oh. Using psychics... Psychic action no longer gives your rival the opportunity to describe both your successes and failures. For the rest of the scene, psychic powers are a curse in Panty Explosion, but a bonus in Classroom Deathmatch. Demons in Classroom Deathmatch. Of course, where there are psychics, you can always find demons. A superintendent can include demons in Classroom Deathmatch if they desire, and trade sorrow dice for demon dice if he sees fit. Psychic students using their powers will generate demon dice just like in Panty Explosion. These demon dice can only be used for the demon and not for other students or JSDF troops the superintendent controls. Unlike in Panty Explosion, the purpose of Classroom Explosion isn't to defeat demons. Instead, think of demons as a supernatural monster to throw into the contest and take everyone by surprise.
The foreign exchange student. Who the fuck invited the kaiju to the party?
Creating students using the Panty Explosion rules and using Panty Explosion to continue the game. So the rest of this is just essentially how to integrate Panty Explosion into this game, which I'm all for. This sounds fun.
Influences and recommendations.
Yeah, so let's see exactly what gave people this influence. So we are on the last chapter. We're in part 10.
Oh, look, Battle Royale is on the list.
Oh, yeah. So Drifting Classroom, Volcano High, Iki Tosen, Heathers, Battle Royale, The Most Dangerous Game. Yeah, that's it. So if you want to take a look at it, so Drifting Classroom is a brutal manga about a school of children stranded in a desolate future reality. Volcano High is a superpowered Korean high school student battle it out in this over-the-top film. Iki Tosen is legendary warriors from Romance of the Three Kingdoms are born or reborn as Japanese high school students, full of crazy martial arts and beautiful and awesome panty shots. The manga is published under the name Battle Vixens in the United States. Heathers, classic 80s film about teenagers who decide to kill their classmates and disguise the murders as suicides.
Yeah, that's an act. That's a thing.
Never heard of that, actually.
Really.
Battle Royale. A fascist Japan government curbs civil unrest through a violent contest where school students are forced to kill each other. The excellent novel was made into a pretty good movie and a real chilling manga. And then the most dangerous game. A big game hunter decides that a man is the most dangerous game of all. This classic short novel is available from just about any bookstore. So there you go, my friends. You guys have now got to hear us talk about Classroom Deathmatch. So now we're going to give you our final thoughts. But I think from what you've already heard us say, you have no doubts. I am a fan of this game. I will be hardcore to run this game any chance I get for the pure laws of it and for the absolute ridiculous bullshit to ensue.
This game definitely has a lot of potential if you have a good group of friends that aren't going to take things personally when you try and fucking murder them. Let's face it, playing a game where you basically have to kill everyone else at the table can create some impressive competitive streaks. But if you've got a good group that everyone is just in it for the fun, and they're not going to take it personal if you murk their favorite character, then by all means, play. Do this. Healthy competition is great. But, murdering the opposition is sometimes just as fun.
Well, I certainly enjoyed this, and I am really looking forward to jumping into another book next time.
We have to get Panty Explosion. We really need
I will go ahead and hunt down Panty Explosion for the sake of possibly continuing this very conversation at a later date. But for now, my name is Nick.
And I'm Donovan.
And we will definitely see you fuckers later.